talk, the topic is on applying mindfulness to reduce worrying and stress. So first of all, I'd just like to define the word mindfulness, because sometimes it's quite interchangeable with meditation. So mindfulness has now been described to have two types of mindfulness. One is the formal mindfulness practice, which is what we just did, sit down, close our eyes, and meditate. That's formal. So when you're doing walking meditation, that's formal. What is informal meditation? That is being aware of our mind and our body at all times, and that includes our actions and speech. So when we practice mindfulness, it's not only when we sit down, close our eyes, and that's a mindfulness practice. That is to strengthen our mind, to enhance its awareness so that we can really pay attention in the present moment, and to try to be non-judgmental so that we're really appreciating and being aware of everything that is going on around us. When we speak, we try to apply mindfulness so that we can reduce the amount of hurt we cause in our speech, which we often do when we're not aware of what we're saying, or we're only aware after the words have come out of our mouth. When we're listening, are we mindfully listening, or are we constantly judging when we are listening to someone else telling us something? And next time when you're talking to someone, especially when someone comes to you with a problem and says, "Can I share something with you?" This is where you can apply your mindfulness to be aware of what is going on in your mind as you are listening. How much of the listening is colored by what labeling you put on what you're hearing, and also passing judgment and bringing other instances and now starting to put forth questions, which is in your own interest to want to find out information rather than being a good friend and just listen. So much of our relationship problems have come about because we don't really listen to each other, especially when you've been together for a long time. Whether you are with your parent, with your sibling, even with your good friends, especially between spouses. We take it for granted, whatever we say, that the spouse will know how to discount if they don't like what they hear. But in actual fact, between spouses, it's so important to practice mindful speech, because the last person you would really or should want to hurt is the one you claim to love and you've chosen to spend your life together. So when you have children, similarly when you speak to your children, how much mindfulness do we apply? And how much mindfulness do you apply to listening? Okay, so these are what you call informal mindfulness. But don't be too hard on yourself. One thing about becoming a Buddhist, people start to judge you. Why you get angry? You are allowed to get angry. Don't feel guilty about getting angry, because it's a natural human response or human reaction. But it's how you manage or use the anger. That is hopefully where you apply mindfulness to choose the response when you feel angry. Okay, but as I mentioned, being a Buddhist, a lot of people will judge you. How come you're Buddhist, you get angry? It's like suddenly, as a Buddhist, you have lost all emotions. And that's just not possible. And sometimes people feel, oh, it's so hard to be a Buddhist, because now people say cannot get angry. Okay? So how do we therefore apply mindfulness to reduce worrying and stress? Oh, yes, I do need audio, because I have some videos. Is there an audio plug somewhere? Thank you. So, when do you feel stress? I know this is not normal Dharma talk where, usually one person talk, everybody listen. But if you can actually get yourself thinking and share, that would be nice. So when do you actually start to feel stressed? Too much work, yeah. When the demand on you exceeds the energy you have, you will feel stress. Yeah? When the demand on you exceeds the energy you have, you will feel stress. So what are your options? What are your possible solutions then? Don't just stay with the problem. Being a Buddhist is about coming up with wise choices to make. To have the wisdom to get yourself out of suffering. We are not being Buddhists to stay in suffering. We are becoming Buddhists, or we are being Buddhists to get out of suffering. So how do you get out of suffering when you have much more demand on you than your energy can support? What are your two possibilities? Cut the demand. Yeah? Or increase your energy. You know one of the ways to increase your energy? Is to have a happier mind. When you can focus on solutions more than you focus on problems, you will have more energy. Because so much of our mind is obsessed with problems. But when you focus on solutions, when you focus on the present moment, that's when your energy arises. Cut the demand is a very good solution as well. But sometimes people are too scared to cut the demand. Why? Why?
Fear of being judged.
Yeah, fear of being judged. Oh, I'm not doing enough. Other people are going to say I don't do enough. And then you punish yourself even more. Not only, it's about now you thinking about yourself not doing enough. And the other one is fear of losing your chances of promotion, not being given new opportunities at work, so you want to push yourself. Okay? So it's okay if you want to do that. Just do it and stop complaining. Because it's a choice. Even if you don't make a choice to get out, it's a choice you have made to stay in it. So don't blame your boss if he keeps giving you even more, because you want to be recognized. You want to be in his good books. You want to earn the kind of money you're earning now. And maybe you want to earn even more. And this has to do with our desire and our greed, to a large extent. It took me 1.5 years to cycle myself to give up a big salary to join a charity. 1.5 years. So it's not an easy journey to let go. Right? Of course, the ultimate letting go is to go and be a monk or a nun, right? You let go of everything. So letting go can be very gradual and in the pace that you are comfortable with. So now don't go beat up yourself and say, wow, now I cannot let go. Why I cannot let go? I'm so greedy. Oh, I've got so much desire. Please don't. Being a Buddhist is not to go and get yourself into a whole cycle of guilt building. Okay? Just be comfortable with yourself. So I'm going to now show you another a video on how stress is being developed in ourselves. So this is a very old video, but it's a very animated one.
Man has more than instinct. He has a superior intellect and a brilliant creative imagination. Unfortunately, this imagination can create unreal dangers and give rise to unnecessary stresses and strains. Take the case of a well-prepared student under pressure of exams.
Guess I got it licked. Yeah. What if the answers are wrong? Oh boy, then I'm not going to graduate. That means no college, and I won't get the job I want. I'll be a bust, a failure. I might not even have a car.
This imagined threat instantly alerts the fear instinct, just as if the danger was real. In this case, the danger was not only imaginary, but short-lived, and tension was relaxed. But now let us see what can happen if fear, aroused by imaginary dangers, continues over a prolonged period.
Good morning, J.G. Huh?
His boss was merely preoccupied at the moment.
Uh-oh. Something's up. He's mad at me. Maybe I'm gonna get fired.
Here we go again, and our man is ready for fight or flight.
I don't have to take that. I'll hit him right in the nose. Wait a minute. I can't do that. He's my boss. I really would get fired. I've got it. I'll quit. What am I saying? I've got obligations. A mortgage, a family to take care of, and...
Obviously, neither fight nor flight makes sense here, so pride is swallowed, along with all the unused biochemicals the body has stirred up. And so our man literally stews in his own juices. After all, most problems, real or imaginary, are soon resolved, and many situations we first believed to be threatening turn out to be purely imaginary anyway.
Good morning, J.G. Huh? Yeah. Oh, good morning, Harvey, my boy.
Okay, so can you relate to some of these situations? Your kid comes back, or you come back after an exam, and then you go into this fear mode, right? Oh my God, I think I didn't do well in it. Or if the child comes back, how did you know the exam? Okay, then you go, are you sure? Just to make sure he is in fear if he's not in fear, right? Or your boss may not be so friendly with you, and then you suddenly think, oh, I think I'm just out of his good books now. What did I do? Maybe I did something wrong. Another sense of fear. Okay. Or maybe he wants to get rid of me. Okay, so your mind has this amazing way of creating stories and exaggerating the situation, especially in a negative way. When you were kids, you probably had a lot of exaggeration, but they were imagination that was quite exciting and fun. But as you get older, you go back to more the caveman brain, which is called the amygdala. This is the amygdala, the old brain, where cavemen used to depend on to survive. The responses are fight or flight. The new brain is the one in orange called the prefrontal cortex. And that's the new man's brain that enables us to learn, to create, to concentrate, to master a skill, and to be able to choose our response. So when you find people who are very reactive, who's got a lot of anger, a lot of kanjongness, I don't want to go, I'm going. That's the fight and flight response that's usually coming out. Right? Well, if he doesn't like me, okay, I'm going to leave. Okay? So ask yourself, how much are you indulging in the fight and flight response versus being mindful in choosing your responses? I'm going to show you another video, and I think you guys know who this is. So, Kung Fu Panda, going back to the start of Kung Fu Panda original, what did he used to do before he became a Kung Fu warrior? Sorry? What was his profession? Selling noodles. Yeah. Did he like it? I think he also had an identity crisis, right? When he looks at his dad, what does his dad look like? It was a goose, yeah, and he's a panda. So he wanted to be a Kung Fu warrior. And at the start of his journey to be a Kung Fu warrior, was he good at it? No. In fact, he sucked at it. So he became quite down or depressed that he wasn't as good as his other 5 friends who were not even as big as him. One of them was really tiny and was still better in Kung Fu. Who were his 5 friends? Tiger, mantis, snake, Monkey and crane. Thank you. Okay, so this is a little clip of Kung Fu Panda being on a mountain, feeling very depressed. And Wu Gui, the wise one, appears. And let's see this conversation and what's going on. Just have a reflection, what's going on in his mind and how he's actually reacting or replying to the questions. Okay?
I see you have found a sacred peach tree of heavenly wisdom.
Oh, is that what this is? I'm so sorry. I thought it was just a regular peach tree.
I understand. You eat when you are upset.
Upset? I'm not upset. What makes you think I'm upset?
So why are you upset?
I probably sucked more today than anyone in the history of Kung Fu, in the history of China, in the history of sucking.
Probably.
And the 5. Man, you should have seen them. They totally hate me.
Totally.
How's Shifu ever gonna turn me into the Dragon Warrior? I mean, I'm not like the 5. I've got no claws, no wings, no venom. Even Mantis has those thingies. Maybe I should just quit and go back to making noodles.
Quit, don't quit. Noodles, don't noodles. You are too concerned with what was and what will be. There's a saying. Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
So can you relate to how much we worry about the future and reminisce about the past, comparing ourselves to others? So what is Wu Gui's words of wisdom? Yesterday is, tomorrow is, and today is that's why it's called present. So in terms of dealing with worrying and the stress that's going on in your mind, is to have some wisdom and the practice of mindfulness to stay in the present moment. Okay. I'd like you to reflect a bit of where do you think that stress is coming from in the Kung Fu Panda clip. And I'm going to show it again, because this time I'm going to stop at different points just to get you to reflect on how much of what's happening to Kung Fu Panda is sometimes happening to us or our loved ones for that matter.
I see you have found a sacred peach tree of heavenly wisdom.
Oh, is that what this is? I'm so sorry. I thought it was just a regular peach tree.
I understand. You eat when you are upset.
Upset?
Okay, so how many people eat when you're upset? So it doesn't mean when somebody puts on weight, they're happier, you know. So this is one of the symptoms that you can watch out for when someone's going to depression. Because when people go in depression, either they lose their appetite or they eat much more abnormally. Okay? Oops.
What makes you think I was that?
So why are you upset?
Okay, so when he was first asked, are you upset? He says, well, why am I upset? Why do you think it's very hard for us to feel like, we want to share with someone when we're upset? To tell them or to get it off our chest what we feel? Pride, yeah? One is pride. What's another one? That you don't want to show your sign of weakness, yeah? And third is, they may not trust you, that you will listen to them and not judge them. So many parents encounter their children clamming up, especially when the children become teenagers. They rather tell their friends than to tell parents. Sometimes even as spouse, you rather tell your friend than your spouse. Because before you can even say anything more than 3 lines, somebody jumps in and says, "Ah yeah, you're always like that lah." So when someone comes to you with a problem, is to just keep quiet and just listen. And watch Ukui, whether Ukui judges him or Ukui basically just echoes a few words. Yeah? Okay.
I probably sucked more today than anyone in the history of Kung Fu, in the history of China, in the history of sucking.
Probably.
And the
So you notice when he says in the history of China, he's so important, right? That he's sucking, and he's so lousy, right? In the whole history of China. And isn't it how we start to frame our story when we're suffering? Like everything is so exaggerated. That we're such amazing victim that nobody suffers like we do. Anybody's suffering is much smaller than our suffering. So this whole exaggeration in our mind is what could eventually lead us to depression. So one of the things is to be mindful that, okay, this is happening, this is exaggeration, stop it. Stop it right now. Stop it at its tracks in your mind. And all this practice of meditation you have is to create that enhanced awareness of your own thoughts and to put a stop to it. If not, all the meditation you're doing for what? Be a waste. Yeah? It's like going to the gym and become stronger, and you can't stop a stone from rolling down the hill before it hits you. And when you get stronger, you stop a boulder hitting you. Okay? So now watch on and see his further exaggeration.
5? Man, you should have seen them. They totally hate me.
Totally.
How's Shifu ever gonna turn me into the Dragon Warrior? I mean, I'm not like the 5. I've got no claws, no wings, no venom. Even Mantis has those thingies. Maybe I should just quit and go back to making noodles.
You see the comparison, how he belittles himself? That even the mantis have those thingies. Can you imagine those thingies actually being able to hurt a big panda like him? So comparing yourself with someone else is just going to create suffering for you. And how much do we do that to ourselves? How much do we do that to our children? Ah, yeah, you should be like your sister, right? She's so good, da 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 da. Or you should be like your brother. After you have said that, your few sentences gets even exaggerated in the minds of your kids. And that's how they develop this sense of inferiority and a sense of inadequacy. I'm not good enough in my mom's eyes. I should be like my sibling in my dad's eyes. I'm never going to live up to make them proud of me. That's what's going on in their minds. So our speech can really hurt. So please, there are 3 principles when it comes to mindful speech. First, is it true? Before we speak, is it beneficial to say it? If both are yes, then is this the right time and right place? There's a fourth, since you're all our Buddhist practitioners. Are we using the right words and the right tone? How often do we start a sentence with, "Ayya! Why you cannot do this properly?" That same sentence can come out, "Oh, do you need some help?" "Aiya, why you can't do this properly?" is a judgment statement. Can I help you? It comes from concern and care. Okay? So moving on, stress, as we mentioned earlier, comes from insufficient energy to cope with the demands that the world has on you. And the second source of stress comes from our own mind. And this is where we're like cows. Do you all know why we're like cows? So next time when people always, have a lot of worry, they say you're like a cow. In hospital, cow means computer on wheels. Yeah, but cows have how many stomachs? 2? How many? 4. 4 stomachs. And the way they eat is they swallow after chewing, and they regurgitate out, and they chew again, and then they swallow, and then they regurgitate, and then they swallow again. Okay? And this is what we do with our mind. Rumination. If someone says something negative to you once, you're very stupid, or can be worse than that. How many times do you say it, repeat it to other people that somebody has called you stupid, and even recycle it in your mind over and over again? And that's rumination. An unpleasant experience that you've had. It has happened, it was gone, done. Yesterday is history. But how often do we replay that in our mind over and over again? Why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. That was really stupid that I said that. Or why did he say that to me? He shouldn't be saying such things. It's very unkind. It's wrong of him. He's misjudged me. I can't believe, I'll never forgive him for it. We punish ourselves. The conversation is over. The incident is over. That's history. But we keep bringing it back into the present moment. So we're stupid as a cow. Right? So whenever you become aware that's what's going in your mind, this is where you have to stop. Because the rumination, unfortunately, is of negative thoughts. If we're going to be like a cow, let's ruminate happy things, happy events, happy occasions, happy conversations, compliments that people have given you, positive things that people have said to you. We're so good at ruminating, right? Let's choose what we're going to ruminate on. If someone said, "Oh, you do a really good job," okay, I'm going to sit there and ruminate. Wow. And that makes us happy. Why do we only want to make ourselves sad by ruminating on the negatives? And that is why you meditate, to strengthen this mind. To be aware, to reject, replace the thoughts. Because an untamed or untrained mind is a Velcro to negatives and a Teflon to positives. What we want to do is to reverse that. Make our mind Teflon to negatives and Velcro to positives. Because the more positive your mind is, remembering the good things about yourself, how people have complimented you, how people have appreciated you, and you appreciating yourself, you will then drive up your energy level. I'm not going to waste my time thinking about criticisms people have on me. If people want to punish me, good, they punish me once by saying it to my face. After that, I'm not going to let them come into my private space when I'm alone. You have that responsibility yourself, because your happiness is your responsibility. So if you're going to take home things, take home only the positives. Acknowledge the negative, and then focus on what you're going to do about it going forward. And that becomes positive. If somebody called us stupid, oh, okay, so call me stupid. What did I do that made me deserve that statement? Okay, I'm not going to do it again. Or I do, but I'm not doing it in front of him. Right? Be smart about it. It's your life. It's your mind. You take care of your mind. In this path is a cultivation of your mind that you're responsible for. What rubbish that goes on other people's mind, it's not your pasal. Don't make it your problem. Like saying, oh, he's a Buddhist. How can he say things like that? He shouldn't say things like that. What kind of Buddhist is he? Sorry, don't waste time on this. We're not here to judge other people. That will only just make things very negative, and it doesn't help with our happiness. Okay? And the other thing that we do well, not just in terms of worrying, is to think about things that even haven't happened. Could happen, will happen, but it hasn't happened. So what does this Snoopy say? Snoopy is always the doomsday person, right? Thank goodness he's got a dog. Someday we will all die, Snoopy. Snoopy, the wise one, says, true, but on all the other days we will not. One day we will get fired. That means we will leave this job. But all the days between now and that day, we're not. We're here. When the company does so badly and it's our turn to go, okay, we go. Let go. That's why we always practice letting go. Don't get so attached. One day your children will leave your side to move on to build their own lives. How much you want to hang on to them? Creating dependency that's not healthy. And those of us who got parents who are aging, how long you want to hang on to them and not allowing them to be able to go peacefully. Accepting illness and death are part of nature. It's natural. So worrying is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do but gets you nowhere. So next time when you watch your mind ruminating, oh my gosh, is this going to happen to me? Is it my turn? I've worked in the corporate world a long time, and I had to also be involved in coming up with a list of people that we have to let go because the business is not doing well and we have to let go. And it's not an easy job. You almost have to decide who is deserving to stay and who has enough bad karma to go. That's really what it is. All the people with good karma stays, all the bad karma goes, or sufficient bad karma. Everybody got good and bad karma, right? And what does it mean to have enough good karma to stay? That you do your job, that you're reliable, you don't make too many mistakes that become unacceptable. And you don't have negative things to say all the time. Once in a while, it's okay. So we tend to pick people who are positive, who can focus on coming up with solutions in life and at the job. The people we tend to let go are the people who always want to argue, who don't say enough, yes, boss. So if you want to be well liked by your boss, there are 2 words you just need to learn. Yes, boss. Now we can all laugh, yeah, this is a yes, boss culture. But guess what? If you have people working for you, wouldn't you like them to also say, yes, boss? Some of you have domestic workers at home. If you're a domestic worker, every time you tell her to do something, you say, don't want to do. How long will she last in your home? No, ma'am. Have you done this? No, ma'am. Are you going to wash the dishes? No, ma'am. Okay? But if you have a domestic worker at home that goes, okay, can you clean this? Yes, ma'am. Can you fold out the clothes? Yes, ma'am. You want to keep or not? Yes. So, if you don't know why you have problems at work, it's because you don't say enough? Yes, boss. Okay? With wisdom, okay? Don't jump out the window, yes, boss. Okay. So prolonged stress can lead to anxiety and depression. Now, I just want to touch a little bit on depression first before anxiety. Do you know in UK, depression is now a number 2 killer, or they expect to be a number 2 killer in 2020 because it's creeping up the scale. Depression kills because when people are in prolonged depression or acute depression, they commit suicide. And in Singapore, there is at least one a day. At least. The statistics haven't changed. And what is worrying is there are an increasing number of people who are younger committing suicide. Teens and 20s. We would look back and think, why in the world would somebody in the 20s want to commit suicide? It's the prime of their lives, where we look the best. 30 onwards, you are aging already. Yeah? Because in their 20s, they see everything is so tough. And worse, in their teens, they also see things are so tough. They go to school, they get pressured by the teachers. They come home, do they get any solace and support? If the parents are tough on them as well, they get pressured from both sides. They then live in a pressure cooker. They look at us. They're supposed to grow up, get into university, get a good job, be successful like us. Are we happy? Do we come across happy as parents? If we're not, why would they want to become like us? So if we want our kids to aspire to be successful like us, we got to come across happy, positive, supportive, encouraging, motivating, inspiring. Young people, if your home doesn't provide you that role model, come to Buddhist fellowship more often. You find your own role models. Because unfortunately, there's been so much media to be fearful so that you will do better, excel, succeed, survive, stay ahead. And that's made everybody so fearful and negative. Okay? So now you on the Buddhist path, you have become more aware of your own thoughts, your own emotions. You have a skill that's ahead of everybody else to be different. Don't get sucked in. We started a new course for teens yesterday with the parents. The parents said, yeah, but the world is so competitive. Like what? You go to work and everybody say, I'm going to compete with you today, okay? Let's see who can run faster. Okay, I'm going to compete with you, see who can finish the report faster. I'm going to do 100 emails today. How many are you doing? 150? Oh my gosh, okay, they're very competitive. I'm going to do 200. Is that what happens at work? No. It's all in our mind. The world is very competitive. You go to work, you just do your job. You do your job well and you get ahead. And you stay in your job. That's what matters. Exams are competitive. You just study and you just do your best. If you get 75, don't worry, their universities will take you if you get 75. If you get 65 marks, their universities will take you at 65 marks, or poly, or whatever. There are options. We all do not have to aim for the same thing. Earning more money doesn't mean you're going to be happier. All those very rich people stand up. Tell me you're all happier. If that was true, everybody living in bungalows would be smiling all the time, right? Walking in and out, all smiling. It's not true, right? There are so many fights inside. Fighting between families, fighting between this. Right? Does that mean everybody live in a condo? Are happier people living in HDB? people living in HDB happier people living in kampong in Malaysia? Not necessarily. So don't get into this mentality that, oh, I got to earn a lot of money and that defines my success. If you don't know how to be happy, it doesn't matter how much money you have. I'm not sure you can say that's success. And that's why now psychiatrists have so much business in the hospitals. And people who come and see them are not poor, Okay. So, anxiety is another one, fearing about the future, right? Being as good as everybody else. Now, I'd like you to watch this, and this is Dan Harris, a journalist, a TV journalist who had a panic attack on TV. Live news. Can I have it a bit louder, please?
Started. Sometimes there are things holding us back from being happy, and we're not aware of it until life hits us over the head with a frying pan. And that is what happened to me.
From ABC News, this is Good Morning America.
Welcome to the most embarrassing day of my life.
We're going to go now to Dan Harris, who's at the news desk. Dan.
Good morning, Charlie and Diane. Thank you. This is me 10 years ago. And the reason this is the most embarrassing day of my life is not that it looks like I've been attacked by a blow dryer and a can of hairspray. No, it's that I am about to freak out on national television. Health news now. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. At this point, I realize I'm helpless, so I bail right in the middle. That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charlie.
All right, thanks very much, Dan Harris at the news desk with some of the headlines of the morning. Want to go to Tony Perkins now.
Once the fear subsided, humiliation rushed in. I knew with rock-solid certainty that I had just had a panic attack on national television. So why would I tell you this very embarrassing story? Because that on-air meltdown was the culmination of something that had been building for years, something I never stopped to address. It's something we all battle, whether we have panic attacks or not. Call it the voice in your head.
That's where I feel stress.
It's the inner narrator that can control us.
Highly critical.
Get in the way of living the life we want to lead. For Brian Simmons, it was outbursts of anger.
I would act very reactively, very
For Becky Schmitz, it was emotional eating.
Eating was like my security blanket.
And for a young Dr. Mehmet Oz, it was a racing mind that kept him from focusing on one thing at a time.
For me, saying a voice in the head is too benign an expression of what really happens. That massive cacophony that we hear, deafeningly loud.
Does it surprise you at all how much time we all spend fixating on these self-defeating voices we hear?
I have always been surprised how much time we spend wasting on the voices in our head telling us we're not good enough.
Okay. So, be aware of the voices in your head. We can have multiple conversations going on in our head at any time if we allow it. And it's not just you talking to yourself in two voices. Your mom's voice come in, your dad's voice come in, your colleague's voice come in, your boss voice come in. And that's not healthy. So this is where you need to learn to stop the voices. Okay? If not, it can result you having a panic attack. This is like someone who has to go on stage and it's like, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to forget my lines. Oh, I don't think I'm going to be able to sing the note. Oh dear, I'm going to forget my words. And then you get out there and you start to sing and then you will really forget. Right? Because we start doubting ourselves. So, these are the symptoms of panic attacks or anxiety attack. Now, before I got into Brahm Center and started getting into this and started to be learning and helping to teach people and making them aware, I didn't realize that actually a few years ago, I used to experience anxiety attacks because I had a boss from hell. And I never imagined someone, I feel I'm a pretty strong person, and I speak up for myself, that I could be suffering from an anxiety attack. And I did. And it got worse and worse because I didn't know. And then I had shortness of breath, I had palpitations, and I thought I had lung cancer because I couldn't breathe properly sometimes. And then I had my heart racing, and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to have a heart attack because my dad had heart attacks. So please become aware of this, and it's important. And now the Ministry of Health is very open about talking about this and wanting people to know more about it and more people to come out and be able to say it so that it's not something you feel embarrassed about, it's a sign of weakness. It's just a sign of the amount of stress and the body is finding it hard to cope. I was in a high-paying job. I had a boss who probably was feeling a bit threatened by me because I was doing very well in my job and people can come straight to me without going to her. And I would always needed to watch out, not for my peers, right? Watch out against my peers stabbing me, against my boss stabbing me. You know what it's like to work in an office where you worry about your boss stabbing you? It's one of the worst things. It's almost like sleeping with someone in your bed, wondering whether he's going to wake up at night and stab you, you know? So, I mean, you would probably have an anxiety attack if you were living with someone that you think your life could be threatened. And your job being threatened is like a life being threatened. This is the new life, right? In this modern world, we're not hunting out in the jungle for our survival. We are working in a corporate environment, and the jungle are all these people around you. That's why I call the corporate animals. So what triggers it? Your thoughts and emotions. The feeling of fear or the feeling of anger can trigger panic attacks. Negative thoughts trigger panic attacks. Okay, so please seek help and address it. And I'm very fortunate I had mindfulness. So after I eliminated that it wasn't heart disease, it wasn't lung cancer, I knew exactly what I had to do. And I was able to get myself out of it. But it was a 1 year at least journey to actually get out of any of the symptoms of anxiety attacks. Now, Dan Harris, whom you have watched, has an amazing turnaround. So I'm going to let you watch this clip on how he has panned out.
Hey, I'm Dan Harris. If you had told me several years ago that I ever would have written a book about meditation, I would have coughed my beer up through my nose.
Isn't it amazing?
Funny things happen.
He's
And
taking
in
a
this little
meditation.
video clip, I'm going to tell you the weird and
bit
windy
louder,
story
please.
of how I went from hardened skeptic to daily and rather public meditator. It all started with a panic attack on national television. It happened in the year 2004 on a little show called Good Morning America. I was filling in as what's known as the newsreader. That's the person who comes on at the top of each hour and reads a series of headlines. I'd actually done this job many times before, so I had no reason to foresee what was about to happen, which was that I was overtaken by an irresistible bolt of fear. A few seconds into my spiel, my heart started racing, my mind started racing, my palms started sweating, my mouth dried up, my lungs seized up. I just couldn't breathe. I couldn't go on. I couldn't talk. For at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer, but it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. At this point, I realize I'm helpless, so I bail right in the middle. That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charlie. I had to do something that I had never done before in my career, which is quit right in the middle. And there's a backstory here which is even more embarrassing. I think at the root of this panic attack was something that a lot of us share, which is a desire to be great at whatever it is we do. I arrived at ABC News at the age of 28. They took a picture of me on my first day on the job. I looked terrified. I was working with giants like Peter Jennings, Diane Sawyer, and Barbara Walters, and I was really self-conscious about the fact that I was green. My way of compensating was to become a workaholic. I just threw myself into the job. Shortly after I arrived, 9/11 happened, and I volunteered to go overseas and cover whatever happened next, frankly without thinking much about the psychological consequences. And I spent many years in places like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, and I made 6 or 7 trips to Iraq. When I got home from one of those trips, I got depressed. And embarrassingly, I didn't even know I was depressed, although I was exhibiting what I now know to be some of the classic signs. I was having trouble getting out of bed. I felt like I had a low-grade fever all the time. And at this point, I did a toweringly stupid thing, which is I started to self-medicate with recreational drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy. Now, to be clear, it wasn't like the Wolf of Wall Street. I wasn't doing it every day. I definitely wasn't doing it when I was working, definitely not when I was on the air. As I like to say, I was stupid, but not that stupid. After the panic attack, though, I went to go see a shrink, an expert in panic, and he asked me a series of questions to try to get to the root of the problem, and one of them was, do you do drugs? To which I rather sheepishly said, yeah, I do. At that point, he sort of leaned back in his chair and gave me a look that said, okay, idiot, mystery solved. He explained that even though I wasn't doing drugs every day, it was enough to raise the level of adrenaline in my brain and prime me to have that panic attack. Now, this isn't one of these neat, tidy stories where I realized what a moron I'd been and then immediately embrace meditation, and then my life becomes a nonstop parade of unicorns and rainbows. There were a lot of strange and unforeseen developments, which I talk about in my book, 10% Happier, that ultimately led me to meditation. I won't lie, when I initially was introduced to the subject of meditation, I thought it sounded unbelievably annoying. I agreed with Alec Baldwin's character on 30 Rock, who said that meditation is a waste of time, like learning French or kissing after sex. I'm kidding, by the way. But then I did some research and I found that there's been an enormous amount of scientific research into meditation in recent years, and it shows that it's incredibly good for you. Everything from lowering your blood pressure to boosting your immune system to literally rewiring key parts of your brain. Let me tell you about one study that was done at Harvard in 2010. It took people who had never meditated before and scanned their brains. And then over the course of the next 8 weeks, they gave these people short daily doses of meditation. At the end of those 8 weeks, they scanned their brains again, and they found that the area of the brain associated with compassion and self-awareness, the gray matter literally grew, and in the area of the brain associated with stress, the gray matter literally shrank. Pretty compelling stuff. And then I learned something else, which is that meditation, despite my misconceptions, does not involve joining a group or believing in anything in particular. That it's actually simple, secular brain exercise. We have another clip up on the site here where you can learn how to do it. I started doing 5 to 10 minutes a day, not a big investment of time. And pretty quickly, within weeks, I started to see 3 main benefits. One, it boosted my ability to focus. I have a very hectic job in the news business. I sometimes have other people's voices literally piped into my own ear. And I have to focus under a lot of pressure and make sure I get the story right and that I do it quickly. And the daily exercise of sitting and trying to focus on my breath and getting lost and starting over, getting lost and starting over, helped me focus on my job. The second benefit was that it just created an increased sense of calm in my life. Stepping out of the traffic for a couple of minutes a day, just focusing on my breathing, made me just a little bit more calm in the rest of my life. It didn't transform me immediately into the Dalai Lama, but it just made me a little bit more calm. And the third benefit is something called mindfulness, which we discuss in yet another of the clips on the site. But basically, it made me less reactive to the voice in my head. So I was less likely to do things like eating when I wasn't hungry, or losing my temper when it was not in my best interest, or checking my phone when my wife was trying to talk to me. In the end, as I say in my book, it made me 10% happier. That's obviously an absurd, unscientific estimate, but I like it because it's true enough, and it sounds like a pretty good return on investment. Now, if my wife had the microphone right now, she would give you the 90% still a moron speech, and my younger brother suggested that we actually retitle the book From Deeply Flawed to Merely Flawed. The point being, this isn't something that's going to fix everything in your life. I've learned from hard experience that it's not going to regrow your hair or make you taller, but it can make a significant difference. And let me finish here with my little tagline, which is, if it can work for a fidgety, skeptical newsman, it can work for you.
You can get more of his little clips on YouTube, and he has now become a meditation evangelist. Isn't that amazing? But it's from his own experience. So, it's all very scientifically based. Okay, now let me just move in the interest of time. What time am I supposed to finish? Now, right? So what we really want to do is to stop this storytelling mind and the negative chatter that happens between our ears. That is actually not useful for us. It reduces our sense of confidence, and it really robs our happiness. So maybe just one very simple technique is the stop sign. So what a lot of scientists now have done in the medical arena is to take the Buddhist teachings, especially meditation and mindfulness, and have created concepts to make it easier for people to understand. And that's why people come now to Brahm Center to learn the courses on how to apply mindfulness. So what does S stand for? Simple, stop, right? That one no-brainer. S stands for stop. Stop for just a moment, especially when you have anger arising or somebody saying something that's unpleasant to your ears and causes an emotional reaction in your body that you can feel. This tingling, like discomfort, just stop for a moment instead of reacting. Take a breath. That one breath creates the gap, the space for you to observe your experience. Noticing the sensations, observing the thoughts, exploring your emotions before you proceed. That allows you to choose a response instead of reacting like a caveman because we're triggered and we act in the fight or flight mode. So usually it's fight. And that's why when someone says something hurtful to us, we try to come up with 10 other more hurtful words to say back, because that's the mode of fight. And does that resolve the problem? We all know it doesn't. Does it help the relationship? We also know it doesn't. Okay, so that pause. And this is where the UK teachers have developed a program called .B. Stop and breathe. And this has evidence that kids are now calmer at school. And if they're calmer, means there are less behavioral problems, less arguments, less bullying, less fights. So, as a Buddhist, I'm so proud that the teachings that came about over 2,500 years ago are now offering practical solutions that enable the young, the old, and the rest in between to live a happier life. And not necessarily aim for nirvana, right? How many of you aiming for nirvana in this life? Be realistic lah, Just aim to be happier, 10% happier, 20% happier. Don't get into this, I'm going to be enlightened this life. Maybe some of you, it's going to be a handful, but the rest of us, let's be realistic, okay? Especially when you're married and you got kids. Just make sure we don't go to hell. With the tests and the challenges we're faced with, that's most important. We can come back to earth. We can be reborn and be coming back to a good family and continue our practice. That's really what we may want to aim for. Yeah. Okay, so to stop the storytelling mind by just doing this .B, because a lot of times our mind comes up with things that are not even real. It's not even going to happen. Like losing your job tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It's not tomorrow. If there's going to be losing of job, it's going to be a whole journey involved. The people in HR will tell you this. Okay? So I'll just like you now to practice .B. Stop. Now just breathe. One breath. If you attended Chet Ming's class, he's a proponent of one breath meditation. So this is that one breath meditation. So we're very glad, in fact, now we have people in the corporate world coming to get trained, because it is not only the temples offering meditation anymore. And schools are able to benefit from it. And this is a group of students that we are trained in the school environment. And this is a group of school principals and vice principals, about 50 of them, that was getting mindfulness training from us. And learning how to listen mindfully and speak mindfully. Some of the couples who came to learn, one of them said, wow, this is the first time my wife listened to me without saying a word. I got a chance to speak. But it's not always the wife. Not only the husband said, sometimes the wife also said, yeah, it's been a long time I could tell a story to my husband without him giving me advice, telling me what to do, you know? Okay. So I'll just show you a quick clip of one of the people who came. He's a young guy who learned to take the course.
I think this course is really very useful, not just for working professionals. I think it will be extremely useful for teens as well. How it has impacted me is that I'm able to calm myself much better, especially in times of anxiety attack or in times of stress. It just gives me that headspace, that much needed space for me to take a step back and reorganize my thoughts. The techniques being taught, they are very useful, and I think they're simple enough for us to use it every single day.
So this young man was suffering from anxiety attacks. And so now, not only he's doing mindfulness, but he's also seeing our psychotherapist. So what you're learning here in the Buddhist Fellowship is not mumbo-jumbo. It's now all scientifically backed up with a lot of research that's being done all over the world, including universities in Singapore. And even in Brahm Center, we collect data to see the pre and post effects of adults learning mindfulness and also parents and children. And we find that children are most effective in embracing mindfulness that helps them to focus better and be calmer is when their parents also take the course together with them. As you can imagine, if you want your kids to be calmer, you are the #1 effector or stressor. So when you become a lot calmer, your kids will also experience that and would want to role model, learn from you as a role model. Okay? So for this one is the reduction in perceived stress, reduction of depression symptoms, mental well-being improvements. And this chart actually shows in one of the groups the correlation between the parents' stress. The depression symptoms of parents has this positive correlation when it reduces, that brings it down the stress of the youths as well. So when we went to Hwa Chong, it was very clear the parents were very stressed, and they're not even the ones going to the school to study. So the conclusion that we had was reducing stress among the youths and lowering depressive symptoms and enhancing the well-being among parents. If the parents are happier, generally the kids will also become happier. Okay. So MBSR is one thing that we're starting to launch, and that is developed by John Kabat-Zinn, who is really the father of what we call modern mindfulness. In 1979, he came up with this program, adapting all the meditation he learned from Thich Nhat Hanh and Tibetan teachers, and secularizing it for hospital environment to teach patients how to cope with their pain, the chronic pain, the pain from chemotherapy, and also all the anxiety, in the face of death. Okay, so that's all I have for you today. I hope you found it useful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Angie, for the insightful sharing. May we say 3 sadhu to her? Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. All right, now have a Q&A section. Anybody want to have question, sharing, or maybe some? Anyone?
all good. Thank you.
Really? No? All right. Oh, okay.
Okay. My name is Sister Angie. I think for this talk, right, about I have a question on mindfulness relating to emotional focus coping and problem focus coping. So is there a difference in mindfulness in emotional focus coping and problem focus coping, as well as is there something like an expression focus coping, something like that?
So when you talk about problem-focused coping, is you applying mindfulness to switch from focusing on the problem to focusing on the solution. Yeah? Okay, so when it comes to problems, when you're aware of what your mind is thinking about and you know you're thinking about a problem, that awareness should enable you now to say, okay, stop focusing on the problem, let's now find solutions. Like Ajahn Brahm's story on, and that some things are not a problem. If you remember the book, Opening the Door of Your Heart, how many of you know his story anyway? Alamak, really? Don't know. Okay, all right, so I'll come to that. And the other one, when you're talking about emotional coping, is that when you know that you're angry, that means your mind is very active in the mode of criticizing or in the mode of complaining. So the next time when you're angry, just take note, what is actually going through your mind? Okay, so now if I help you invoke some anger here, I'll think of someone who has actually wronged you, who said something unkind about you or hurtful. What comes up in your mind? So not only the words that were uttered to you come up in your mind, there is a reaction in your mind as, how dare he said that? He has got no right to judge me. I'm going to get back at him. Wait till the day I'm going to get back at him. Or wait till karma gets him. Or whatever, right? So that's what's going on in your mind. So actually, when you are angry with someone, it takes a lot of energy. And that is also why being angry with someone is a very energy zapping. So you don't have energy for things that are positive because your energy is being drained by this negative thing that's going through your mind actively. It takes energy to stay angry at somebody. And it takes energy for you to keep recalling why you need to stay angry. So if you're angry at your mom, you see your mom, it says, yeah, mom did this. Yeah, I mustn't forget mom did that as well to me. And mom said this to me. It's very active energy. So when you notice that, it's to switch out and says, you know what, I'm going to forgive because no one is perfect. And my mom said that to me because she couldn't help it. She didn't have enough mindfulness. She's not developing compassion. She's not developing loving kindness. She's not developing wisdom. You are developing wisdom. You are developing compassion for yourself and for her. You are understanding the causes of suffering is ignorance. That should even make Buddhists easier to forgive, because when you remember your own teachings, please apply it. Otherwise, why are you coming every Sunday? Does that make sense? Okay, so the story about problems, some of you not aware of the story. So this is Prime Minister Macmillan. How many of you know the story? Prime Minister Macmillan in the 70s was the head of Britain. And he was asked by a reporter, Sir, Prime Minister, what are you doing about the problem in the Middle East? And he said, in his reply, there is no problem in the Middle East. The young reporter was absolutely shocked. Like, how come Prime Minister don't know there's all this problem in the Middle East? He says, Prime Minister, people are killing each other in the Middle East. And he looked at her and replied, a problem has a solution. If there's no solution, it is not a problem. How wise? Not everything that you think of is a problem. When it's not a problem, recognize it because you can't find a solution. Just accept lah. Like, you think you can change everyone? Impossible. Those of you got mother-in-law, you think you can change your mother-in-law? No. You accept lah. You can change your husband? You're wasting your time. You can change your wife? You're wasting your time. You can change your children? You're also wasting your time. The only one you can change is you. When you change, you inspire the world to change. And that's what the Buddha did. He changed himself. He didn't go around in his practice changing other people. He changed himself, and that's why his practice, his journey still inspires millions around the world, 2,500 years later. I hope that helped. Thank you. Anyone else?
All right.
Nice hair, Grace.
Hi, Sister Angie. Would you share during the days of your devil's boss as well as your depressive mode, how do you pen out of the situation which take 1 year?
Oh, okay. I think I was under a very hellish boss for a few years. So it was a whole build-up of stress. As I mentioned, I didn't even realize I was starting to feel anxiety, panic attacks or anxiety attacks, whichever you called it. I thought I was becoming quite psychic. Because whenever I had this churn, I thought, okay, somebody must be saying something bad about me. So that was a complete misconception of what I was actually going through. And admittedly, I didn't know till after I left the job on how tense I was. Because when I moved to the next job and I was trying to type an email, I froze. And that's when I realized something is wrong and that I was under so much stress that it affected my ability to operate at optimum level. So a lot of people who have a mental condition, you know, what they call now a mental illness, may not even realize it until later on. So at least now things are becoming I think people are becoming more aware and the stigma is leaving. And I think more of us who are willing to come up and speak and share would also help other people to say that, oh my gosh, I'm also suffering from anxiety attacks, or I'm also suffering from depression, and seek the appropriate help to come out of it quicker. Yeah. So we have a counselor and psychotherapist, both full-time at Brahm Center, if you'd like to just come in and talk to them, or see any psychiatrist that could also be able to help diagnose. So it doesn't mean, you know, you're a Buddhist, you know, you're practicing meditation, you'll be free from this, because, you know, you have a lot of external factors. Same as, it doesn't mean you're not going to fall sick. You're not going to get fever and flu and cough and cold and all that stuff, right? Or cancer for that matter.
Okay, any more questions? Still got time.
Just simple question. Do you think that you can be free from your anxiety attack and stress if you still stay in your previous job, which is with the hellish boss?
I think I could have stayed on because I didn't even know I was suffering from anxiety attacks. But I think one thing I need to mention is that people who are suffering from depression, you may not always know. So I've been in now 2 companies that people have jumped and killed themselves, and none of us knew that they were suffering from depression.
Do you think you can still be free from anxiety attack? Means that if you apply more mindfulness and stuff, if you still stay in that job?
If I stayed, yeah, she was retiring. I resigned a couple months just before she retired. Yeah, but I think your health is far more important than whatever money you earn. Yeah, so I think please remember that. Yeah. Yes.
Any more? Oh.
Just a question on the stop concept. So to me, a sudden stop has a forceful notion. So it's something like it's forced. Do we really just suddenly stop, or do we let it fade and go in reduce in intensity for those negative thoughts, for example?
Well, I think when you take your breath, let's all just take your breath now. And now be aware of what's in your mind. You become clearer in what's in your mind, what thoughts are going on in your mind. And it also helps to dissolve your emotions that have become, that are becoming stronger and stronger. So instead of controlling your anger, it's about dissolving the anger. It's not suppressing your anger, but allowing the anger to subside. So that's the difference when you do your breathing. So when you're really angry, do 1. If you're really angry, do 3 breaths. If you're really, really angry, do 20 or 30. What we're trying to do is to reduce the amount of hurt and negative repercussions when we are going to react with our angry emotions. I think all of you look back in your life when you're angry, there were lots of hurtful words that were said that you now can't pull back, right? You can't swallow them back. Or people who are road rage, it's because they can't control their anger. They didn't have that gap to stop. So they end up hitting someone and they end up in jail. And then these poor people end up in depression. Yeah. So we have also helped people who come to the center in depression, referred to by medical professionals, and says, please come and learn mindfulness, because what this helps you is at least to be mindful of emotions and how to dissolve it. And that is the real benefit of anger management. Because you have no time to go and do all this processing. Why am I angry? Is this anger bad for me and all that? It's just to stop and having that mind clear up. Yeah. Does that help? Thank you.
Okay. Sister Angie, in the waking hours, we can apply mindfulness. But for my case, I think I'm suffering from anxiety to a certain extent. But at night when I'm sleeping, that's where, I get, in the middle of the night, I just wake up. And what do I do?
Okay. So when you wake up, tune into your mind, what are other thoughts that are coming up? Sometimes it's because, first of all, our mind is very powerful. It has an amazing personal assistance capability. That means it reminds you of everything that you are supposed to do. So when you wake up, a lot of times, you haven't done this, you have things to do, and so on and so forth. Have a notebook beside you and write them down. So don't try to go back to sleep when you've got so many thoughts in your head, trying to remind you to ensure you don't forget. Okay? And meditate before you go to sleep, because it helps you, all the subconscious thoughts to arise. So when you do the body scan, relax your body, and then allow the subconscious thoughts to arise so that you know what they are and you write it down. Yeah. So we do have what you call an intermediate course that helps people to take note of their thoughts and be more conscious of what to work on, what they can work on to, what issues they can work on to eradicate, and what issues that you realize that you just have to accept. They've happened, and there's nothing that you can do about it. Because sometimes a loved one may have passed away, and then you feel a lot of guilt. And then you don't let go. And then you get insomnia as a result of that. So it's coming to terms of forgiving yourself, developing that self-compassion, that you now, you have beaten up yourself enough. You have deprived yourself enough of happiness. You have tortured yourself enough. It's time to move on.
All right, maybe one last more question, or maybe feedback, or maybe sharing.
No question.
All right, no question. Thank you, Sister Angie,
Thank you
for the
very much.
insightful sharing. Sadhu, sadhu.